The harsh winter wind whipped across the desolate plains of Wyoming Territory, 1878. As Noah Galloway stood motionless at the corner of Cedar and Main, his breath forming ghostly clouds in the frigid night air, refusing to seek shelter despite having waited over an hour past the time the schoolhouse lights typically went dark. Lucy Blackburn hadn't noticed him the first few nights. He'd positioned himself precisely 30 paces from the small schoolhouse where she taught. By the fifth evening, when she finally spotted his tall figure leaning against the weathered hitching post, she'd given him a courteous nod but quickened her pace toward her boarding house. Noah hadn't approached, hadn't spoken a word. He'd simply tipped his hat and watched from a respectful distance as she hurried away. Tonight marked the 14th consecutive evening Noah had appeared, and Lucy had grown both curious and slightly unnerved by his silent vigil. The temperature had plummeted with the arrival of December, bringing biting cold that cut through the thickest wool coats. She wondered what would possess a man to endure such discomfort night after night without ever attempting conversation. Lucy extinguished the oil lamp on her desk and gathered her lesson plans for the following day. Through the frosted windowpane, she could make out his familiar silhouette against the starlit sky. His patience was remarkable, if not slightly unsettling. Tugging her woolen shawl tightly around her shoulders, Lucy steeled herself for the bitter cold and the mysterious cowboy who awaited her. "Mr. Galloway," she acknowledged as she descended the schoolhouse steps, her tone formal but not unkind. "You'll catch your death in this weather." Noah straightened his posture, removing his hat in a gesture of respect. "Evening, Miss Blackburn." His voice was deep but gentle, like distant thunder without the threat of storm. "Thought you might appreciate some company on your walk home." Lucy studied him carefully. Noah Galloway wasn't like the other men in Timber Creek. Where most cowboys carried an air of restlessness, Noah possessed a steady calmness that seemed immovable as the distant mountains. His eyes, the color of a summer sky, watched her with patience rather than expectation. "You've been waiting here nearly every night for 2 weeks, Mr. Galloway," Lucy said, clutching her books to her chest. "Yet you've never once approached until I spoke first." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Didn't want to frighten you, madam. A lady deserves to feel safe." "And standing in the shadows watching me isn't frightening," she challenged, though there was no real accusation in her tone. Noah considered this, looking genuinely troubled. "I suppose that wasn't well thought out on my part. I apologize if I caused you concern." The sincerity in his voice disarmed her. Lucy had arrived in Timber Creek just 6 months earlier, accepting the teaching position after the previous schoolmarm had married and moved east. At 22, she'd left behind her family in Boston, determined to forge her own path rather than follow her parents' plans for an arranged marriage to a banking associate of her father's. "May I walk you home, Miss Blackburn?" Noah asked, maintaining a respectful distance. Lucy hesitated only briefly before nodding. "You may, Mr. Galloway, though I should warn you, it's not a particularly exciting journey." They walked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the crunch of their boots on the hard-packed snow and the distant howl of a coyote. Lucy stole glances at her companion, noting the way his shoulders blocked the worst of the wind from reaching her, though he never mentioned the sacrifice. "You're not from around here," Noah finally said, a statement rather than a question. "Boston," Lucy replied. "Though I'm finding Wyoming has its own particular charms." "Such as?" Noah's curiosity seemed genuine. Lucy thought for a moment. "The sky, for one. I've never seen stars so bright or so many, and the people here are straightforward." In Boston, conversation is often a game where the true meaning is hidden beneath layers of social niceties. Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Out here, a person's word and actions are all that matter. Nature doesn't care much for pretense." "Is that why you've been standing in the cold for 2 weeks without saying a word?" Lucy asked, unable to resist a small smile. A demonstration of actions over words, the corner of Noah's mouth twitched upward. "Perhaps I was gathering courage, Miss Blackburn. Courage." "You don't strike me as a man who lacks for bravery, Mr. Galloway." "Some things require more courage than others," he replied simply. They reached the boarding house where Lucy resided, a two-story structure that housed several unmarried women working in various capacities throughout Timber Creek. A soft light glowed from the parlor window, indicating Mrs. Holloway, the proprietress, was still awake. Noah stopped at the gate, not presuming to accompany her to the door. "Thank you for allowing me to walk with you, Miss Blackburn. Will you be waiting again tomorrow?" Lucy asked, surprising herself with the question. "If you'd permit it," he answered, his expression earnest beneath the brim of his hat. Lucy nodded slowly. "I would. Perhaps next time we might actually converse during our walk." "I'd like that very much," Noah replied, his voice warming the frigid air between them. Lucy watched as he tipped his hat and turned to leave, his tall figure soon swallowed by the darkness. She couldn't explain the flutter in her chest, or why the prospect of tomorrow's walk home left her feeling strangely hopeful. Mrs. Holloway greeted Lucy as she entered the boarding house, her knowing eyes taking in Lucy's flushed cheeks. "I see Mr. Galloway finally found his voice," the older woman commented with a smile. "You knew he was waiting for me?" Lucy asked, removing her shawl and hanging it near the fire to dry. "Everyone knows, dear, Noah Galloway isn't a man who does anything without purpose." Mrs. Holloway handed Lucy a cup of hot tea. "He's a good man, lost his wife to fever about 3 years back. Hasn't shown interest in any woman since, until you arrived." Lucy felt heat rise to her face that had nothing to do with the crackling fire or hot tea. "We only just spoke tonight, Mrs. Holloway. I wouldn't read too much into a simple act of courtesy." The older woman merely smiled. "Of course, dear. Though courtesy doesn't usually involve standing in freezing temperatures for hours on end, night after night." Lucy took her tea upstairs to her room, Mrs. Holloway's words echoing in her mind. As she prepared for bed, she found herself wondering about Noah Galloway and the wife he had lost. What kind of man mourns for 3 years, then stands in silence for 2 weeks just for the chance to walk a woman home? The next day dragged by with unusual slowness. Lucy found herself glancing out the schoolhouse window more frequently than normal, wondering if Noah would appear earlier or if he would wait until evening as he had before. Her students noticed her distraction, exchanging knowing glances when she had to ask young Timothy Parks to repeat his arithmetic answer. When the final bell rang and the children collected their slates and books, Lucy felt an unfamiliar nervousness take hold. She busied herself with unnecessary tasks, straightening books that were already aligned perfectly on the shelf, wiping clean a blackboard that hardly had any chalk dust. Through the window, she spotted Noah arriving, right on time, taking up his usual position by the hitching post. Unlike previous evenings, he didn't simply stand and wait. This time he brushed down his horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion that stamped impatiently in the cold. Lucy took more care than usual with her appearance, tucking a stray strand of auburn hair back into her simple bun before wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. She locked the schoolhouse door and descended the steps, her heart beating a touch faster than normal. "Good evening, Mr. Galloway," she greeted him, pleased that her voice remained steady despite her inexplicable nerves. Noah looked up from tending his horse, a genuine smile warming his features. "Miss Blackburn, I hope your day was pleasant." It was, though the children were rather restless. The approaching Christmas holiday has them all excited. Lucy moved closer to admire his horse. "What a beautiful animal." "This is Rusty," Noah said, patting the stallion's neck with obvious affection. "Been with me through thick and thin for 7 years now." The horse nudged Lucy's shoulder gently, making her laugh. "He's friendly. He's got good judgment when it comes to people," Noah replied, watching the interaction with pleasure. "Would you like to ride him sometime? He's gentle despite his size." Lucy hesitated. "I haven't been on a horse since I was a girl, and certainly never on one so large." "I'd be right there," Noah assured her, "but only if you wanted to, of course." The offer hung between them, representing more than just a simple ride. It was an invitation to step beyond their silent walks, to spend time together in daylight rather than just these brief evening journeys. "Perhaps," Lucy said finally, "though I'd need to wear something more suitable than my teaching clothes." Noah nodded, clearly pleased she hadn't outright refused. Saturday, maybe, if the weather holds. Saturday, Lucy agreed, surprising herself with her willingness. They began walking toward her boarding house, Rusty following a few paces behind without being led, like a faithful guardian. "How long have you been in Timber Creek, Mr. Galloway?" Lucy asked, genuinely curious about this quiet man who had suddenly become a fixture in her daily routine. "All my life," Noah replied. "My father established our ranch about 15 miles north of town when this was still unorganized territory. Galloway Ranch has been running strong for 30 years now." A rancher, then. "I suspected as much, though you don't quite fit the image of the typical cowboys who come through town on cattle drives." Noah chuckled, the sound warm and pleasant. "I've done my share of drives and have the saddle sores to prove it. But these days I focus more on breeding stock and managing the business side of things. My foreman handles most of the day-to-day operations." "It sounds like a substantial operation," Lucy commented. "It keeps us busy," Noah acknowledged modestly. "What about you, Miss Blackburn?" "What brought you all the way from Boston to our little corner of Wyoming?" Lucy considered how much to share. "I wanted adventure, I suppose, and independence. Boston society has very specific expectations for young women of certain families, and I found those expectations stifling." "Expectations such as?" Noah prompted gently. "Marriage to a suitable gentleman of appropriate standing and background, running a household, producing heirs, all very proper and predetermined." Lucy couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "I wanted to make my own choices, to experience something beyond drawing rooms and garden parties." Noah was quiet for a moment, absorbing her words. "And has Timber Creek provided the adventure you were seeking?" Lucy smiled, looking around at the frontier town with its simple wooden buildings and dirt streets. "It's certainly different, though I must admit being followed home by a silent cowboy for 2 weeks wasn't part of my anticipated adventures." Noah's laugh was unexpected and genuine. "I imagine not. I apologize again for my approach. Social graces aren't my strong suit, I'm afraid." "Why did you wait so long to speak to me?" Lucy asked, the question that had been burning in her mind since the previous evening. Noah's pace slowed slightly as he considered his answer. "At first, I just wanted to make sure you got home safely. Winter evenings can be dangerous, especially for someone not accustomed to our weather or wildlife. Then," he paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Then I realized I enjoyed watching over you, but I didn't want to impose." "You came here seeking independence, not another man telling you what to do." His thoughtfulness touched Lucy deeply. Most men she'd known would have immediately pressed their attentions upon her, asserting themselves into her life without consideration for her wishes. "That's very considerate, Mr. Galloway, though I wouldn't object to conversation during these walks. The silence, while peaceful, can be a bit overwhelming." "Noah," he said suddenly. "Please call me Noah." Lucy felt a small thrill at this simple intimacy. "Then you must call me Lucy, at least when we're not in public view. It wouldn't do for my students to hear such familiarity." "Lucy," Noah repeated, as if testing how her name felt on his tongue. "It suits you." They reached the boarding house gate far too quickly for Lucy's liking. Their conversation had flowed easily once begun, and she found herself reluctant to end it. "Thank you for the escort, Noah," she said, enjoying the liberty of using his given name. "My pleasure, Lucy." His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary. "Until tomorrow." "Until tomorrow," she confirmed, a promise in her voice that hadn't been there before. As Lucy prepared for bed that night, she found herself looking forward to Saturday with an eagerness that both excited and alarmed her. She had come to Wyoming to escape the matrimonial expectations of Boston society, not to fall under the spell of the first considerate man she encountered. Yet there was something about Noah Galloway that felt different from the suitors her parents had paraded before her. His quiet strength and respectful distance spoke of a man secure enough in himself that he didn't need to impose his will on others. His patience in waiting for her night after night, enduring the bitter cold without complaint, revealed a depth of character that intrigued her. Lucy drifted to sleep with thoughts of Noah's gentle smile and the promised horseback ride dancing through her mind. Saturday dawned clear and unusually mild for December, as if the Wyoming weather were conspiring to ensure Lucy's first riding lesson would be pleasant. She dressed carefully in her one pair of trousers, purchased for the journey west but rarely worn since her arrival, and a warm woolen shirt. The clothing felt strange after months of proper dresses and petticoats, but she knew riding side saddle would be impractical for a beginner. A knock at the boarding house door precisely at 10 o'clock announced Noah's arrival. Mrs. Holloway answered, her usual decorum slipping slightly as she took in Noah's appearance. He had exchanged his working clothes for a clean shirt and his best jacket, his dark hair still damp from what was clearly a recent washing. "My goodness, Mr. Galloway, you look positively transformed," Mrs. Holloway commented with poorly concealed delight. "Lucy will be down momentarily." Noah shifted uncomfortably under her knowing gaze. "Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. It's kind of you to allow Miss Blackburn to join me today." "Nonsense. The girl needs fresh air and sunshine. Teaching is noble work, but she spends far too much time cooped up in that schoolhouse." The older woman leaned closer, lowering her voice. "She's been ready since dawn, you know, though I suspect she'd deny it if questioned." Lucy's footsteps on the stairs saved Noah from having to respond. He looked up to see her descending, and the expression that crossed his face made Lucy's heart skip. It wasn't merely appreciation or attraction that shone in his eyes, but something deeper, a kind of wondering reverence that made her feel both seen and treasured. "You look—" Noah began, then seemed to lose his words. "Scandalous," Lucy supplied with a nervous laugh, gesturing to her trousers. "I know it's hardly proper attire." "Beautiful," Noah finished quietly, "and sensible for riding. I brought Daisy for you. She's gentle and patient, perfect for beginners." Outside, Lucy saw two horses waiting patiently. Rusty, the magnificent chestnut she'd met before, and beside him a smaller, dappled gray mare with intelligent eyes. "Hello, Daisy," Lucy said, approaching the horse carefully. The mare nudged her hand gently, as if in greeting. "She likes you," Noah observed, coming to stand beside Lucy. "May I help you mount?" Lucy nodded, suddenly nervous about the actual riding part of their outing. Noah's hands were strong and sure as they circled her waist, lifting her effortlessly onto the saddle. The brief contact sent a flutter through her stomach that had nothing to do with fear of falling. "Hold the reins loosely, like this," Noah demonstrated with his own, then adjusted Lucy's grip. "Daisy responds to gentle pressure from your legs more than pulling on the reins. She'll follow Rusty's lead, so don't worry too much about directing her at first." Under Noah's patient instruction, Lucy quickly gained confidence. They rode at a leisurely pace out of town, following a well-worn trail that wound through snow-dusted plains toward the distant foothills. The winter landscape spread out around them like a blank canvas, pristine and untouched in many places. "It's breathtaking," Lucy said, taking in the vast expanse. "In Boston, everything is so crowded together, you can never see this far in any direction." "That's what I love about it," Noah replied. "The openness, room to breathe, room to be yourself without bumping against everyone else's expectations." "Is that why you never left, even after?" Lucy hesitated, unsure if she should mention his deceased wife, after Sarah died. Noah finished gently. "Partly, this land is in my blood, but also because she's buried on Galloway land beneath her favorite cottonwood tree, I couldn't bear to leave her there alone." The simple honesty of his statement touched Lucy deeply. "I'm sorry. Mrs. Holloway mentioned you'd lost your wife, but I shouldn't have brought it up." "It's all right," Noah assured her. "Sarah was a part of my life for 8 years. I can't pretend she didn't exist, and I wouldn't want to. She'd be the first to tell me life goes on." They rode in companionable silence for a while, Lucy concentrating on her riding and Noah seemingly lost in thought. When they crested a small rise, Noah reined Rusty to a stop. "I thought we could rest here a while," he suggested, nodding toward a flat boulder that overlooked a shallow valley. "I brought some food if you're hungry." Lucy realized she was, in fact, quite hungry. The morning's exertion had awakened her appetite. Noah helped her dismount, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than strictly necessary before he released her. From his saddlebag, he produced a simple but appealing lunch: fresh bread, cheese, dried apple slices, and 2 jars of preserved peaches. He spread his coat on the boulder for Lucy to sit on, despite her protests that she didn't mind the cold stone. "My mother would haunt me forever if I didn't show proper manners," Noah explained with a smile. As they ate, Noah pointed out landmarks visible from their vantage point: distant mountains with names like Sleeping Indian and Devil's Tower, the ribbon of the Powder River winding through the valley, and far to the north, barely visible on the horizon, the faint outline of buildings that comprised Galloway Ranch. "It seems so isolated," Lucy commented. "Don't you get lonely out there?" "Sometimes," Noah admitted. "But there's always work to be done, and we have about 15 hands who live on the property. It's like a small community of its own. Still, it must be different now without." Lucy trailed off again, not wanting to keep returning to the subject of his wife. "Without Sarah," Noah finished for her again, his voice gentle. "Yes, it is, but loneliness isn't always about being physically alone. Sometimes you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely isolated." Lucy nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "That's how I felt in Boston, always surrounded by people who didn't really see me, only what they wanted me to be." Noah studied her face. "And what did they want you to be?" "A proper society wife. Someone who would host dinner parties and charity functions, who would smile and nod and never express an opinion contrary to her husband's." Lucy sighed. "My father had arranged for me to marry his business partner's son, a man 30 years my senior who viewed a wife as merely another acquisition." Noah's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound like a marriage, more like a business transaction." "Exactly," Lucy exclaimed, pleased by his understanding. "That's precisely what it was. When I refused, my father threatened to cut me off entirely. So I applied for teaching positions as far away as I could reasonably travel alone. Wyoming Territory seemed sufficiently distant." "Brave," Noah commented, admiration clear in his voice. "Many would have capitulated to family pressure." Lucy shrugged, though his praise warmed her. "Not brave so much as desperate. I couldn't imagine spending my life with a man who saw me as property rather than a partner." "Is that what you want, a partnership?" Noah asked, his eyes intent on her face. Lucy considered the question seriously. "I think so. My parents' marriage was very traditional. My father made all decisions, and my mother deferred to him in everything. They seemed content enough, but I always wondered if my mother had dreams of her own that she abandoned." "My parents had a different approach," Noah said. "My father often joked that he was only in charge when my mother allowed it. They discussed everything, made decisions together. When they disagreed, they would talk until they reached a compromise both could accept." "That sounds wonderful," Lucy said wistfully. "It was," Noah agreed. "I always hoped to have that kind of relationship. Sarah and I were heading in that direction before she fell ill." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "The fever took her so quickly, 3 days from the first symptoms to—" He didn't finish the sentence. Lucy reached out impulsively, placing her hand over his. "I'm so sorry, Noah." He turned his hand beneath hers, gently squeezing her fingers. "Life is unpredictable out here. You learn to appreciate the good moments when they come." The touch of his hand sent warmth spreading up Lucy's arm. They sat like that for several minutes, connected by the simple contact, neither speaking but communicating nonetheless. Finally, Noah reluctantly released her hand and began packing up their lunch. "We should head back before it gets too late. The temperature drops quickly once the sun starts to set." The ride back to town was peaceful, Lucy now comfortable enough on horseback to enjoy the scenery without concentrating so hard on staying mounted. As they approached Timber Creek, Noah slowed their pace. "I enjoyed today, Lucy," he said, his voice carrying easily in the still winter air. "Would you consider joining me again, perhaps for Christmas Eve dinner at the ranch? I know it's forward of me to ask, but my mother always hosts a celebration for the ranch hands and some folks from town." "Mrs. Holloway usually attends." Lucy felt a flutter of excitement at the invitation. "I'd like that very much, Noah, thank you." His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "I'll send a wagon for you and Mrs. Holloway. The roads can be treacherous in December." As they reached the boarding house, Lucy was reluctant for their day to end. Noah helped her dismount, his strong hands once again circling her waist. This time, when he set her on the ground, he didn't immediately step back. They stood close, his hands still resting lightly at her waist, her face tilted up to his. For a breathless moment, Lucy thought he might kiss her. His gaze dropped to her lips, and she found herself hoping he would. Instead, Noah stepped back, releasing her with obvious reluctance. "Thank you for joining me today," he said formally, though his eyes conveyed emotions far less restrained. "May I still walk you home from the schoolhouse?" "I'd be disappointed if you didn't," Lucy admitted. Noah's smile returned, warming his entire face. "Then I'll see you Monday evening." Lucy watched him ride away, Daisy following on a lead rope behind Rusty. She hugged the memory of the day close, already looking forward to Monday's walk and, beyond that, Christmas Eve at Galloway Ranch. Monday's weather turned sharply colder, with heavy gray clouds promising snow by evening. Lucy's students were unusually subdued, perhaps affected by the gloomy atmosphere outside the schoolhouse windows. As the final bell approached, fat snowflakes began drifting past the windows, quickly thickening into a steady fall. Lucy worried that Noah might not appear in such weather, though she knew such concern was foolish. He had waited in conditions equally poor before they began speaking. Still, as she dismissed her class with warnings to hurry straight home, she couldn't help glancing anxiously out the window for any sign of him. The children bundled up and scurried out, their excited voices carrying back as they exclaimed over the snow and planned snowball fights for the following day if the weather held. Lucy lingered, organizing her desk and preparing the next day's lessons while periodically checking the window. Just as she had given up hope and begun buttoning her heavy coat, a familiar figure on horseback emerged through the thickening snowfall. Noah dismounted quickly, tying Rusty to the hitching post before bounding up the schoolhouse steps. He knocked briskly, snow already accumulating on his shoulders and hat. Lucy opened the door immediately. "Noah, I wasn't sure you'd come in this weather." "Wild horses couldn't have kept me away," he replied, stamping his boots to remove excess snow. "Though I thought perhaps we might take Rusty instead of walking. The snow's coming down harder than expected." Lucy nodded, relief and happiness warming her despite the cold draft from the open door. "That seems sensible. Let me just lock up." Once outside, Noah helped Lucy mount, positioning her in front of the saddle before swinging up behind her. The arrangement was far more intimate than their side-by-side ride on Saturday. Noah's chest pressed against her back, his arms encircling her to hold the reins. Lucy felt surrounded by his warmth and strength, protected from the biting wind and snow. "Comfortable?" Noah asked, his voice close to her ear. Lucy nodded, not trusting her voice. The physical proximity was both thrilling and disconcerting, awakening sensations she hadn't experienced before. Rusty moved confidently through the thickening snow, his steady gait ensuring their safety despite the increasingly poor visibility. Lucy leaned back slightly into Noah's solid presence, allowing herself to enjoy the secure feeling of his arms around her. "The Christmas Eve celebration," Noah said after they had ridden in silence for a few minutes. "I should warn you that my mother can be somewhat enthusiastic about holiday gatherings and about meeting new people in general." Lucy smiled at the touch of apprehension in his voice. "Are you worried she'll embarrass you?" "Terrified," Noah admitted with a chuckle. "She's been after me to rejoin the living for the past year. When I mentioned I was bringing a guest to Christmas Eve dinner, she nearly collapsed from excitement." The implication that she was special enough to mention to his mother sent a pleasant warmth through Lucy's chest. "I'm looking forward to meeting her. Anyone who raised you must be a remarkable woman." "She is," Noah agreed, affection clear in his voice. "Tough as nails when she needs to be, but with the biggest heart imaginable. She kept the ranch running after my father died, even though most people said a woman couldn't manage such an operation." "She sounds like someone I'd admire," Lucy said sincerely. They reached the boarding house too quickly for Lucy's liking. Noah dismounted first, then reached up to help her down. His hands spanned her waist easily, and as he lowered her to the ground, their faces came very close together. Snowflakes caught in Noah's eyelashes and dusted his dark hair visible beneath his hat. Acting on impulse, Lucy brushed a snowflake from his cheek. "Thank you for coming to get me. I would have been soaked through walking in this." Noah caught her hand as she withdrew it, holding it gently against his chest. His heart beat strongly beneath her palm. "Lucy," he said, his voice deeper than usual, "may I call on you properly, not just these walks home, but actual courtship?" The question, though not unexpected given their growing closeness, still made Lucy's breath catch. "Yes," she answered without hesitation, "I'd like that very much." Noah's smile was radiant despite the gloom of the snowy evening. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Good night, Lucy. Sleep well." "Good night, Noah," she replied, reluctantly withdrawing her hand and hurrying inside as the snow continued to fall more heavily around them. Mrs. Holloway was waiting in the parlor, pretending to be absorbed in her knitting, though her knowing smile betrayed her interest. "Mr. Galloway seems to be a very considerate escort," she commented as Lucy removed her snow-dusted coat. "Bringing his horse in this weather was quite thoughtful." "He is considerate," Lucy agreed, unable to keep the happiness from her voice. "He's invited me to Christmas Eve dinner at Galloway Ranch. He mentioned you usually attend." "Oh yes," Mrs. Holloway confirmed. "Noah Galloway puts on a wonderful celebration. The entire ranch gathers, plus various townspeople who'd otherwise be alone for the holiday. The food is magnificent, and there's always music and dancing afterward." "Dancing?" Lucy echoed, suddenly nervous. "I haven't danced in ages, and never the kind of dances they might do here." Mrs. Holloway patted her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, dear. Country dances are easy to learn, and I'm sure Noah will be happy to guide you through them." The next 2 weeks passed in a pleasant rhythm. Each day, Noah would appear at the schoolhouse as Lucy's lessons concluded. Sometimes they would walk, sometimes ride, depending on the weather. Their conversations flowed easily, covering topics from books they had read to their hopes for the future. Noah spoke of his plans to expand the breeding program at Galloway Ranch, introducing stronger bloodlines to improve their stock. Lucy shared her desire to eventually start a proper library in Timber Creek, where currently books were scarce and precious commodities. On Sunday afternoon, Noah took Lucy to meet his mother at the ranch. Noah Galloway proved to be exactly as Noah had described, a formidable woman in her early 60s with shrewd eyes that missed nothing and a warm smile that immediately put Lucy at ease. "So you're the young lady who's brought my son back to life," Noah said bluntly after introductions were made, ignoring Noah's embarrassed protest. "It's about time. 3 years of mourning is quite enough, I've been telling him." "Mother," Noah said, his tone warning though his eyes held affection. "Lucy doesn't need to hear all this immediately." "Nonsense," Noah dismissed with a wave of her hand. "Better she knows what she's getting into. Noah's a good man, Lucy, the best I know, but he's carried his grief like a shield." "I'm glad to see him setting it down at last." Lucy found she appreciated the older woman's directness. "Noah has been nothing but kind and considerate to me, Mrs. Galloway. I'm grateful for his friendship." Nora's knowing eyes assessed Lucy carefully. "Friendship is a good place to start. The best marriages grow from it." "Mother," Noah groaned, rubbing his forehead, "we've known each other barely a month. Could you perhaps not plan our wedding quite yet?" Noah laughed, the sound remarkably similar to her son's. "Very well. I'll restrict myself to planning Christmas Eve instead." "Lucy, do you play the piano? Our usual pianist has moved to Colorado and we're lacking musical accompaniment for the dancing." "I do, actually," Lucy admitted, "though I'm out of practice. We had a piano at home in Boston, but I haven't played since arriving in Timber Creek." Noah clapped her hands in delight. "Wonderful. You can practice on hours before dinner. It's a bit out of tune from the dry air, but it serves well enough for dancing." The remainder of the visit passed pleasantly, with Noah showing Lucy around the impressive main house, while Noah was called away briefly to deal with a situation in the stables. The Galloway home was larger than Lucy had expected, built solidly of timber with a stone foundation. Though far from ostentatious, it spoke of generations of careful stewardship and modest prosperity. Noah's grandfather built the original cabin, Nora explained as they toured the house. My husband expanded it when we married, and Noah added the east wing after Sarah. She paused, then continued more softly. After we lost her, he needed the project to occupy his hands and mind. Lucy nodded in understanding. It's a beautiful home. You must be very proud of what your family has built here. Nora's expression softened. We are. It's not always been easy. We've weathered droughts and blizzards, market crashes, and Indian conflicts, but the Galloways endure. She patted Lucy's hand. I'm glad Noah found you. He needs someone with spirit to match his own stubbornness. Before Lucy could respond to this frank assessment, Noah returned, apologizing for his absence. One of the new colts got himself tangled in some fencing, he explained. No serious damage, but Jenkins wanted my opinion on whether to call the veterinarian. And, Nora prompted. Just some minor cuts. I cleaned them myself and applied some of your salve. He'll be fine. Noah turned to Lucy. I should get you back to town before dark. The temperature's dropping. As they prepared to leave, Nora embraced Lucy warmly. I'm so looking forward to Christmas Eve, dear. And to many more visits after that, I hope. On the ride back to Timber Creek, Lucy found herself contemplating Nora's words about marriage growing from friendship. Though she had come west specifically to escape matrimonial expectations, she couldn't deny that her feelings for Noah were deepening rapidly. His quiet strength, unfailing kindness, and obvious respect for her independence appealed to her in ways no Boston suitor ever had. Your mother is wonderful, Lucy said as they rode side by side, the winter sun beginning its early descent toward the horizon. I can see where you get your straightforward nature, Noah chuckled. She certainly doesn't believe in mincing words. I hope she didn't overwhelm you. Not at all. I found her refreshing after years of Boston politeness that conceals more than it reveals. She likes you, Noah said, glancing at Lucy with a smile. Though that was never in doubt, you've made quite an impression on the people of Timber Creek in just 6 months. Lucy raised an eyebrow. Have I? How would you know? You didn't speak to me until 2 weeks ago. Noah looked slightly abashed. I may have asked about you discreetly. Asked whom? Lucy pressed, amused by his discomfort. Various people, Mrs. Holloway, Reverend Clark, Mr. Peterson at the general store. Noah's cheeks colored slightly. I wanted to know what kind of person you were before I approached you, Lucy laughed. And what did your investigation reveal? That you're kind to everyone regardless of their station, that you spend your own money on supplies for students who can't afford them. That you stood up to Thomas Wheeler when he tried to pull his daughter out of school because reading wasn't necessary for a girl who'd just get married anyway. Noah's expression grew serious. Everyone I spoke to said the same thing, that you were different from what they expected from an educated Easterner, that you treated Timber Creek not as a temporary stop but as a community worth investing in. Lucy was touched by this assessment. I do love it here, more than I expected to. There's a realness to life that was missing in Boston. They rode in companionable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. As they approached town, Noah spoke again. Lucy, there's something I should tell you before Christmas Eve. The solemnity in his voice caused a flutter of concern in Lucy's chest. What is it? Sarah's parents will be there. They still live about 20 miles east of us, and they always attend our Christmas celebration. Noah's expression was difficult to read. They're good people who have suffered tremendously. Losing Sarah was devastating for them. She was their only child. I just wanted to prepare you. They may be curious about you. Lucy nodded, understanding his concern. Of course, I'll be sensitive to their feelings. Thank you, Noah said, relief evident in his voice. I value their friendship and wouldn't want to cause them pain. This consideration for others, even in the midst of his own happiness, only increased Lucy's admiration for Noah. As they reached the boarding house and Noah helped her dismount, she found herself wishing their time together didn't have to end. I'll see you tomorrow, she asked, though she already knew the answer. Without fail, Noah promised, his eyes warm as they held hers. Then, with a gentleness that made her heart flutter, he leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Good night, Lucy." "Good night, Noah," she whispered, the spot where his lips had touched seeming to glow with warmth despite the frigid air. The days leading up to Christmas Eve passed in a flurry of activity. The schoolhouse closed for the holiday break, giving Lucy time to help Mrs. Holloway with preparations for her own small Christmas celebration at the boarding house. Lucy also worked on a gift for Noah, embroidering handkerchiefs with his initials, a simple present, but one she hoped would please him. On Christmas Eve morning, Lucy woke to the sound of sleigh bells. Looking out her window, she saw a handsome cutter sleigh pulled by two matched gray horses waiting in front of the boarding house. Noah stood beside it, dressed in his best clothes, speaking with Mrs. Holloway, who had already emerged to greet him. Lucy dressed quickly in her finest dress, a deep green wool that complemented her auburn hair. She had splurged on the fabric shortly before leaving Boston, having it made up by a local seamstress in Timber Creek, who had managed to follow the latest Eastern fashion remarkably well despite her isolated location. When Lucy descended the stairs, Noah's expression of appreciation made the expense of the dress worthwhile. "You look beautiful," he said simply, his eyes never leaving her face. "Thank you," Lucy replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. "The sleigh is lovely." "I didn't expect such elegant transportation." "It was my mother's idea," Noah admitted. "She only brings it out for special occasions." Mrs. Holloway bustled about, ensuring they had sufficient blankets for the journey. The temperatures dropped again overnight. "You'll want to stay warm on the ride." Once they were settled in the sleigh, Noah tucked thick fur blankets around Lucy and Mrs. Holloway before taking the reins. The horses moved off smoothly, the sleigh runners making a satisfying swish as they glided over the packed snow. The journey to Galloway Ranch passed quickly, filled with Mrs. Holloway's cheerful chatter about previous Christmas celebrations and her predictions for this year's festivities. Lucy listened with half an ear, more aware of Noah beside her, his thigh occasionally pressing against hers as the sleigh navigated uneven terrain. Galloway Ranch was transformed for the holiday. Lanterns hung from every post, their golden light creating pools of warmth in the winter landscape. The main house blazed with light from every window, and greenery festooned the porch railings. As they approached, Lucy could hear music and laughter spilling out into the cold night. Noah helped both women from the sleigh before handing the reins to a waiting ranch hand. "Welcome to Christmas at Galloway Ranch," he said, offering Lucy his arm. Inside, the house was filled with people, ranch hands and their families, townspeople Lucy recognized from Timber Creek, and others she had never met. A massive pine tree dominated one corner of the great room, decorated with paper ornaments, strings of cranberries, and small candles carefully placed on the sturdier branches. Noah Galloway spotted them immediately, making her way through the crowd with remarkable speed for a woman of her years. "You're here at last. Come in, come in. Lucy, you look absolutely lovely. That green is perfect with your coloring." Lucy was introduced to so many people in quick succession that she had trouble keeping names straight. Noah remained at her side, his steady presence reassuring in the midst of the happy chaos. When they reached an older couple standing near the fireplace, Noah's hand tightened slightly on Lucy's arm. "Lucy, I'd like you to meet James and Martha Wilson, Sarah's parents," Noah said, his voice gentle. "James, Martha, this is Miss Lucy Blackburn." Martha Wilson was a slight woman with kind eyes that held a permanent shadow of grief. She took Lucy's offered hand between both of hers. "It's wonderful to meet you, my dear. We've heard so much about the new schoolteacher." James Wilson, tall and silver-haired, nodded in agreement. "The children speak highly of you, Miss Blackburn. Our grandnephew Timothy says you're the best teacher he's ever had." "Timothy Parks is your grandnephew?" Lucy asked, making the connection. "He's one of my brightest students." This commonality eased the potential awkwardness, and Lucy found herself engaged in a pleasant conversation about Timothy's progress and aptitude for mathematics. Throughout the exchange, She remained acutely aware of the complex emotions at play: the Wilsons' obvious affection for Noah, their grief for their daughter, and their genuine attempt to be welcoming to Lucy despite what her presence might represent. When they moved on to greet other guests, Noah squeezed Lucy's hand appreciatively. "Thank you," he murmured. "That couldn't have been easy." "They're lovely people," Lucy replied honestly. "I can see why you value their friendship." Dinner was served at a long table that had been assembled in the dining room, stretching into the adjacent parlor to accommodate all the guests. Lucy found herself seated between Noah and Reverend Clark, with Mrs. Holloway across from her. The meal was abundant: roast beef, venison, and turkey, accompanied by every imaginable side dish, all prepared by Nora and the ranch cook with help from neighboring women. After dinner, the furniture was pushed back to create space for dancing. Nora led Lucy to the piano, an upright model that had clearly seen many years of use but was well maintained. "Just a few simple tunes to get everyone started," Nora encouraged. "Then you can join the dancing while someone else takes a turn." Lucy settled at the piano, running her fingers over the keys experimentally. Despite being slightly out of tune, as Nora had warned, the instrument had a warm, rich tone. She began with a simple waltz, one she had played often at Boston gatherings. The familiar music flowed from her fingers despite her months away from regular practice. As couples began to form for the dance, Noah approached an older woman who Lucy later learned was his aunt. Lucy watched him lead her onto the floor, moving with surprising grace for a man who spent most of his days on horseback. His consideration in dancing first with an elderly relative rather than immediately claiming Lucy for a partner only enhanced her growing affection for him. After playing 3 pieces, Lucy was relieved by James Wilson, who proved to be an accomplished pianist himself. Noah immediately appeared at her side, hand extended in invitation. "May I have this dance, Miss Blackburn?" Lucy placed her hand in his, allowing him to lead her to the center of the room. "I should warn you that I'm more familiar with formal ballroom dances than country reels," she admitted as they took their positions. "Just follow my lead," Noah said, his hand warm at her waist. "I won't let you misstep." The dance was a simple waltz, allowing Lucy to find her rhythm quickly. Noah guided her confidently, maintaining a proper distance between them while still creating a sense of intimacy in the crowded room. As they moved together, Lucy felt as though they were in perfect harmony, anticipating each other's movements instinctively. "You dance very well for a cowboy," Lucy teased lightly as he executed a particularly smooth turn. Noah smiled down at her. "My mother insisted all her children learn proper social graces, regardless of our frontier location. She said civilization was a state of mind, not a geographic designation." "A wise woman," Lucy agreed, "though I'm beginning to think the same could be said of true wilderness. Boston has its own kind of savagery, just hidden beneath silk and lace." The evening progressed with more dancing, singing of carols, and the sharing of holiday traditions. Lucy found herself fully embraced by the community, accepted as Noah's companion without question or judgment. Even the Wilsons made a point of speaking with her several times, sharing stories of their holiday traditions that carefully avoided direct mentions of Sarah while still honoring her memory. As midnight approached, Reverend Clark called for silence, then led the gathering in a prayer of thanksgiving and hope for the coming year. When he concluded, Nora announced it was time for gift-giving, though she emphasized that presence was more important than presence in their celebration. Small gifts were exchanged, mostly practical items like knitted scarves, preserved foods, hand-carved wooden items, or small toys for the children. Lucy presented Mrs. Holloway with a delicate lace collar she had made, and gave Nora a small bottle of lavender water she had ordered from Denver. When it came time to exchange gifts with Noah, Lucy felt suddenly shy. They moved slightly apart from the main gathering, finding a quiet corner near the Christmas tree. "It's not much," she said, handing him the carefully wrapped handkerchiefs, "but I wanted you to have something made by my hand." Noah unwrapped the gift carefully, running his fingers over the embroidered initials. "They're beautiful, Lucy, thank you." His expression was tender as he reached into his pocket. "I have something for you as well." The small package he handed her was wrapped in brown paper tied with a simple red ribbon. Lucy opened it to find a delicately carved wooden brooch in the shape of a book, with her initials engraved on the cover. "Noah, it's exquisite," she breathed, tracing the fine details with her fingertip. "I made it myself," he admitted. "I'm not as skilled as some, but I wanted to give you something personal." "You made this." Lucy was touched beyond words. The craftsmanship was remarkable, evidence of many hours of careful work. "It's the most thoughtful gift I've ever received." Noah took the brooch from her hand and carefully pinned it to her dress. "It suits you," he said softly. Then, glancing upward with a smile, he added, "It seems we're standing beneath the mistletoe." Lucy followed his gaze to see a sprig of greenery hanging from the ceiling above them. Her heart began to race as Noah's eyes returned to hers, a question in their blue depths. "May I?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lucy nodded, unable to find her voice. Noah leaned forward slowly, giving her ample opportunity to step away if she wished. Instead, Lucy closed the distance between them, her eyes fluttering shut as his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle and brief, appropriate for a public setting, yet it contained a promise of deeper feelings that made Lucy's heart sing. When Noah drew back, his eyes held hers with such tenderness that she felt tears prick behind her eyelids. "Merry Christmas, Lucy," he murmured. "Merry Christmas, Noah," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. The moment was interrupted by Nora calling for everyone's attention to announce that hot cider was being served in the kitchen. Noah offered Lucy his arm, and they rejoined the celebration. Though something fundamental had shifted between them, a threshold crossed that could not be uncrossed. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Nora insisted that Lucy and Mrs. Holloway stay the night rather than making the cold journey back to town. "We have plenty of room, and it's far too late and cold for the trip. Noah can take you back tomorrow after breakfast." Mrs. Holloway accepted gratefully, admitting that the prospect of the cold sleigh ride held little appeal. Lucy was shown to a comfortable guest room that adjoined Mrs. Holloway's, with strict instructions from Nora to sleep as late as she wished on Christmas morning. Before retiring, Lucy found Noah waiting at the bottom of the stairs to bid her good night. "Thank you for coming," he said, taking both her hands in his. "Having you here made this the best Christmas I've had in years." "Thank you for inviting me," Lucy replied. "Your family and friends are wonderful. I felt truly welcome." Noah raised her hands to his lips, kissing first one then the other. "Sleep well, Lucy. I'll see you in the morning." Lucy slept soundly, lulled by the comfortable bed and the lingering warmth of Noah's kiss. She woke to bright sunshine streaming through the window and the delicious smell of breakfast cooking. Dressing quickly, she made her way downstairs to find the kitchen bustling with activity. Nora directed operations while ranch hands came and went, collecting plates piled high with food before heading out to tend to necessary chores. "Ah, Lucy, Merry Christmas morning," Nora greeted her warmly. "Help yourself to coffee. Noah's just gone to check on a mare that's due to foal any day." "He'll be back shortly." Lucy accepted the offered coffee gratefully, finding a quiet corner to observe the domestic scene. Mrs. Holloway appeared shortly after, and the two women chatted companionably while waiting for Noah's return. When he finally appeared, stamping snow from his boots at the door, his face lit up at the sight of Lucy. He crossed to her immediately, lowering his voice as he greeted her. "Good morning. I hope you slept well." "Very well, thank you," Lucy replied, acutely aware of Nora watching them with undisguised pleasure. After breakfast, Noah prepared the sleigh for the journey back to town. The day was clear and cold, the snow-covered landscape glittering under the winter sun. As they traveled, Mrs. Holloway tactfully dozed beneath her blankets, giving Noah and Lucy a measure of privacy for conversation. "Your mother mentioned the foaling mare," Lucy said. "Is everything all right?" Noah nodded. "She's not quite ready yet, but it shouldn't be more than a day or two." "First foal of the season, always an exciting time." "You love it, don't you?" Lucy observed. Not just the ranch work, but the whole cycle of it, the seasons, the birthing, the growth. I do, Noah admitted. There's something deeply satisfying about participating in that cycle, being a steward of the land and animals, knowing that what you're building will outlast you. Lucy considered this thoughtfully. That's what teaching feels like to me in a way. Helping shape young minds, knowing they'll carry something of what you've given them into their futures. Noah's expression warmed. We're not so different then, are we, both creating legacies in our own ways? The observation struck Lucy as profound. Despite their different backgrounds and life experiences, she and Noah shared fundamental values about contribution and continuity. It was yet another way in which they seemed to fit together naturally, complementing each other's strengths. When they reached the boarding house, Mrs. Holloway discreetly went inside immediately, leaving Noah and Lucy alone for a moment of farewell. "When can I see you again?" Noah asked, still holding her hand after helping her from the sleigh. "I'm free until school resumes after New Year's," Lucy replied. "Perhaps you could show me more of the ranch. I'd love to see the mare when she foals, if that would be possible." Noah's face brightened at her interest. "I'd like that very much. I'll come for you tomorrow, weather permitting." "And Lucy?" He paused, suddenly looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Last night, under the mistletoe, I hope I wasn't too forward." Lucy felt warmth rise to her cheeks despite the cold. "Not at all. In fact, I was hoping you might be equally forward now without the excuse of mistletoe." Noah's eyes darkened as he stepped closer, one hand rising to gently cup her cheek. "In that case, Miss Blackburn, may I kiss you goodbye?" "Please do, Mr. Galloway," Lucy replied, her heart racing as Noah lowered his lips to hers. This kiss, without the audience of the previous night, was longer and deeper, expressing feelings that were rapidly growing between them. When they finally parted, both were breathless, their eyes holding promises for the future. "Until tomorrow," Noah said, reluctantly releasing her. "Until tomorrow," Lucy echoed, knowing with sudden certainty that her decision to come west had led her exactly where she was meant to be. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur of joy for Lucy. True to his word, Noah came for her the following day, taking her to witness the birth of the foal, a gangly, perfect little colt with a white star on his forehead. Lucy was moved to tears by the miracle of new life and by Noah's gentle expertise as he assisted the mare through the delivery. Each day brought new discoveries as Noah showed Lucy various aspects of ranch operations: the breaking of horses, the care of cattle, the maintenance of equipment essential for survival in the harsh Wyoming environment. Lucy absorbed it all eagerly, asking questions that revealed her quick intelligence and genuine interest in Noah's world. In the evenings, they would often join Nora for dinner, sometimes accompanied by neighboring ranchers or townspeople who seemed to accept Lucy's presence at Galloway Ranch as natural and right. After dinner, Noah would drive Lucy back to town, their journey filled with conversation that ranged from philosophical discussions about literature to practical plans for the coming spring. And each evening ended with increasingly passionate kisses that left both breathless and reluctant to part, though Noah's innate respect for Lucy and her reputation always kept him from crossing the boundaries of propriety. On New Year's Eve, Timber Creek held a community celebration at the town hall. Nearly everyone attended, from the wealthiest rancher to the poorest farmhand, all equal for one night of music, dancing, and hopeful anticipation of the year to come. Lucy wore her green Christmas dress again, with Noah's carved brooch pinned proudly at her collar. Noah arrived to escort her, looking uncommonly handsome in a suit that, while not fashionable by Eastern standards, fit his broad shoulders perfectly and emphasized his natural dignity. "You look beautiful," he told her as she descended the boarding house stairs, his admiration evident in his expression. "Thank you," Lucy replied, taking his offered arm. "You're quite handsome yourself. That color blue suits you." The town hall was festively decorated with evergreen boughs and red ribbons. A small orchestra comprising local musicians provided lively music, and tables along one wall groaned under the weight of potluck contributions from every household. As they entered, Lucy was struck by how completely she now felt a part of this community. People called greetings, children ran up to tell Miss Blackburn about their Christmas presents, and older women nodded approvingly at Noah's protective hand at her waist. In just 6 months, she had transitioned from outsider to accepted member of Timber Creek society. "Would you like to dance?" Noah asked as the musicians struck up a waltz. "Very much," Lucy replied, allowing him to lead her onto the floor. They moved together with the same natural harmony they had discovered at the Christmas Eve celebration, their bodies finding perfect synchronization as they navigated the crowded dance floor. Lucy was acutely aware of Noah's hand at her waist, the clean scent of his shaving soap, and the warmth in his eyes as they never left her face. As midnight approached, the town mayor called for attention, raising his glass in a toast to the coming year. "May 1879 bring prosperity to our town, peace to our territory, and happiness to all our families." Glasses were raised in response, and as the clock struck 12, cheers erupted throughout the hall. Couples embraced, friends shook hands, and the air filled with well wishes for the new year. Noah drew Lucy slightly away from the crowd into a quiet alcove near one of the windows. The moonlight streaming through the glass illuminated his features as he took both her hands in his. "Lucy," he began, his voice serious despite the festive atmosphere surrounding them. "These past weeks have been the happiest I've known in years. Getting to know you, spending time with you, it's changed everything for me." Lucy's heart began to race at his tone. "For me as well, Noah." He took a deep breath, then continued. "I know it hasn't been long, and if you feel it's too soon, I'll understand completely. But I've learned that life is unpredictable and sometimes terribly short. When you find something precious, you shouldn't wait to acknowledge it." Noah released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing a small object that glinted in the moonlight. Lucy's breath caught as she recognized a ring, a simple gold band set with a modest diamond flanked by 2 small sapphires. "This was my grandmother's," Noah explained softly. "My mother gave it to me last week, saying it was time it adorned the hand of someone who would continue our family's legacy." Tears filled Lucy's eyes as Noah sank to one knee before her, still holding her left hand gently in his. "Lucy Blackburn, I love you. Your intelligence, your courage, your kindness, everything about you has captured my heart completely. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" For a moment, Lucy could only stare at him, overwhelmed by emotion. This was so different from the cold arrangement her father had tried to force upon her in Boston. Here was a man kneeling before her not because of family connections or financial advantages, but because he truly saw her, valued her, and loved her for exactly who she was. "Yes," she whispered, then more strongly, "Yes, Noah, I love you, and I would be honored to be your wife." Joy transformed Noah's face as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her hand. He rose to his feet and gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that communicated everything words could not express: his love, his gratitude, his promise of devotion. When they finally separated, Lucy was aware of applause surrounding them. Looking up, she realized that their private moment had been observed by many of the townspeople, who now offered congratulations and good wishes. Noah Galloway appeared at their side, tears of happiness streaming unashamedly down her face as she embraced first Lucy, then her son. "I knew from the moment I met you," she told Lucy, squeezing her hands tightly. "You were the one who would bring light back into his eyes." The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and celebration. Mrs. Holloway insisted they begin planning the wedding immediately, while Reverend Clark offered the church for any date they might choose. Even the Wilsons, who had come to town for the celebration, approached to offer sincere good wishes, Martha embracing Lucy warmly with whispered thanks for bringing joy back to Noah's life. As the party wound down in the early hours of the morning, Noah drove Lucy back to the boarding house in his sleigh, both of them wrapped in blankets against the cold but warmed from within by their shared happiness. When would you like to be married? Noah asked as they traveled slowly through the quiet, snow-covered streets. Spring, summer, Lucy considered the question. I don't want a long engagement, perhaps February or March. That would give us time to prepare without unnecessary delay. Noah's smile was visible even in the dim moonlight. February it is. Just enough time to add on to the east wing of the house. I thought you might like a proper library of your own. Lucy's heart swelled at this thoughtful consideration. A library would be wonderful, and perhaps a classroom someday. I'd like to continue teaching in some capacity, even after we're married. Of course, Noah agreed immediately. The ranch children could use more formal education than they currently receive, and perhaps others from outlying areas could join them. You could create the school you've always envisioned. The ease with which Noah accepted and supported her professional aspirations only confirmed for Lucy that she had made the right decision. This was a true partnership of equals, founded on mutual respect and shared values. As they reached the boarding house, Noah helped Lucy from the sleigh and walked her to the door. Before saying goodnight, he drew her into his arms once more, kissing her with tender passion. I love you, Lucy Blackburn, he murmured against her lips, soon to be Lucy Galloway. I love you too, Noah, she replied, her arms tightening around his neck. More than I ever thought possible. They reluctantly parted, Noah waiting until Lucy was safely inside before returning to his sleigh. As Lucy prepared for bed, she found herself constantly glancing at the ring on her finger, marveling at the unexpected turn her life had taken. She had come west seeking independence and adventure, fleeing the constraints of Boston society and her father's matrimonial plans. Instead, she had found a different kind of freedom, the liberty to be fully herself, valued for her mind and spirit, alongside a man who viewed marriage not as ownership but as partnership. Lucy fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of the future that awaited her at Galloway Ranch with Noah by her side. The following 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Lucy resumed her teaching duties while simultaneously planning the wedding with help from Nora and Mrs. Holloway. Noah threw himself into expanding the east wing of the ranch house, determined to have Lucy's library completed before she became his wife. Word was sent to Lucy's parents in Boston, though she held little hope they would approve or attend. Her father's response was predictably cold, expressing disappointment in her hasty decision to align herself with an uneducated frontiersman. Her mother's separate, secret letter was warmer, expressing wishes for Lucy's happiness and enclosing a small lace handkerchief that had belonged to Lucy's grandmother as a wedding gift. Lucy was hurt but not surprised by her father's reaction. She had long since accepted that his vision for her life and her own desires were incompatible. The community of Timber Creek had become her family now, with Noah Galloway filling the maternal role that Lucy's own mother had never quite managed to embody. February 15, 1879, dawned clear and cold, perfect weather for a winter wedding. Lucy dressed in the boarding house room that had been her home for the past 8 months, assisted by Mrs. Holloway and 2 other teachers who had become her friends. Her wedding dress, ordered from Denver, was elegant without being ostentatious ivory satin with delicate lace trim that complemented her slender frame. You look absolutely beautiful, Mrs. Holloway declared, adjusting the simple veil that crowned Lucy's upswept hair. Noah won't be able to speak when he sees you. A knock at the door announced the arrival of James Wilson, who had asked for the honor of escorting Lucy down the aisle in her father's absence. The request had touched Lucy deeply, understanding the significance of Sarah's father giving this blessing to her union with Noah. "You are a vision, my dear," James said, his eyes suspiciously bright as he offered Lucy his arm. "Noah is a fortunate man indeed." The small church was filled to capacity with townspeople and ranchers from the surrounding area. As Lucy entered on James's arm, the assembled guests rose to their feet, murmurs of appreciation flowing through the crowd. But Lucy had eyes only for Noah, who waited at the altar beside Reverend Clark. The expression on Noah's face as he watched her approach was one Lucy knew She would remember for the rest of her life a mixture of awe, joy, and profound love that brought tears to her eyes. He looked impossibly handsome in his new suit, his normally unruly dark hair tamed for the occasion, his blue eyes never leaving hers as she moved toward him. When James placed Lucy's hand in Noah's, the connection between them felt electric. Noah's fingers closed around hers with gentle strength, and Lucy knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. The ceremony itself was traditional but personal, with Reverend Clark speaking eloquently about the foundation of trust and respect that would sustain their marriage through whatever challenges might come. When it came time for their vows, Noah's voice rang clear and sure through the church, his promises to love, honor, and cherish Lucy bringing fresh tears to her eyes. When Lucy spoke her own vows, she added words that had not been rehearsed. I promise to be not only a loving wife but a true partner in all things, to stand beside you rather than behind you, to share your joys and sorrows equally, and to build with you a legacy that will endure beyond our time. Noah's eyes shone with emotion at these additional promises, recognizing in them Lucy's commitment to the kind of equal partnership they had discussed. By the power vested in me, Reverend Clark concluded, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Noah gathered Lucy gently into his arms, his kiss conveying all the love and promise of their future together. The church erupted in applause and cheers as they turned to face their community as husband and wife for the first time. The celebration that followed at Galloway Ranch lasted well into the night, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed the entire county. Lucy moved through the festivities in a haze of happiness, constantly aware of Noah's presence beside her, his hand seeking hers at every opportunity, his eyes finding hers across the room whenever they were momentarily separated. As the evening progressed, guests began to depart with final congratulations and ribald jokes that made Lucy blush. Nora eventually shooed away the last lingering visitors, hugging Lucy tightly before retiring to her own quarters in the west wing of the house. "Welcome home, daughter," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You've brought so much joy back to this house already." Left alone at last, Noah took Lucy's hand and led her through the main house to the newly completed east wing. "I have something to show you," he said, his eyes alight with anticipation. Opening a set of double doors, he revealed a room that took Lucy's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls, already partially filled with volumes. A large desk stood beneath the window that overlooked the eastern pastures, and comfortable reading chairs were arranged near a small fireplace where flames already danced merrily. "Your library," Noah said simply. "A place for you to read, write, plan your lessons, whatever you wish." Lucy moved into the room slowly, touching the polished wood of the shelves with reverent fingers. "Noah, it's perfect, absolutely perfect." "There's more," he said, leading her to the adjacent room. This space was larger, with a blackboard mounted on one wall, several small desks arranged in rows, and a teacher's desk positioned at the front. "Your classroom, for whenever you're ready to begin teaching here." Tears filled Lucy's eyes at this tangible evidence of Noah's support for her professional aspirations. "You've thought of everything," she whispered. "I want you to be happy here," Noah said earnestly. "Not just as my wife, but as yourself, Lucy the teacher, Lucy the reader, Lucy the independent spirit who traveled across the country to forge her own path." Lucy turned to face him fully, placing her hands on his chest. "I am happy, happier than I ever imagined possible. And it's because you truly see me for who I am." Noah lowered his forehead to rest against hers. "I see you, I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing to share your path with mine." Their kiss deepened, and Noah swept Lucy into his arms, carrying her from the classroom through the library to the final door that led to their bedroom. As he set her gently on her feet, Lucy felt a momentary nervousness that quickly dissolved under Noah's tender gaze. "We have all the time in the world," he assured her, sensing her slight hesitation. "Nothing needs to happen that you're not ready for. Lucy reached up to touch his cheek, moved by his consideration. "I'm ready to be your wife in every way, Noah. I'm just a little nervous about my inexperience." Noah's smile was gentle as he took her hand and raised it to his lips. "We'll learn together, Lucy. That's what partnership means." As the night deepened around Galloway Ranch, Noah and Lucy discovered the final dimension of their connection. Their physical union as beautiful and right as their emotional and intellectual bonds had proven to be. In Noah's arms, Lucy found a passion she had never imagined possible, matched by a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the quilts that Nora had made as a wedding gift, Lucy rested her head on Noah's chest, listening to the steady beating of his heart. "I love you, Noah Galloway," she whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for waiting in the cold all those nights just to walk me home in silence." Noah's arms tightened around her, his lips pressing a kiss to her hair. "I would have waited forever for you, Lucy, but I'm grateful I didn't have to." Outside their window, snow began to fall again, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. But within the walls of their home, Noah and Lucy had created a warmth that would sustain them through all seasons, a love built on respect, partnership, and the courage to forge their own path together in the wild Wyoming Territory they both now called home. 5 years later, Lucy stood on the porch of Galloway Ranch, watching as Noah led their 4-year-old daughter Sarah on her first pony ride. The little girl's laughter rang out across the yard, her dark curls so like her father's bouncing with each step of the gentle mare Noah had bred specifically for her. Beside Lucy, 2-year-old James played contentedly with wooden blocks, occasionally looking up to make sure his mother was still nearby. With his auburn hair and serious blue eyes, he was a perfect blend of both his parents. In the distance, Lucy could see the schoolhouse that now stood near the main ranch house, a proper building with large windows and space for 20 students. Children from neighboring ranches rode in daily for lessons, and Lucy had recently hired a second teacher to help with the increasing enrollment. The library Noah had built for her wedding gift was now filled with books some purchased, others donated by Eastern publishing houses that had responded to Lucy's impassioned letters about the need for education on the frontier. It had become a resource not just for the school but for the entire community, with adults often borrowing volumes to continue their own education. Galloway Ranch had prospered under Noah and Lucy's joint stewardship. Noah's breeding program had produced horses sought after throughout the territory, while Lucy's careful accounting and business correspondence had opened new markets for their cattle. What had begun as a successful family operation had grown into one of the most respected ranches in Wyoming Territory. Lucy's thoughts were interrupted by the sight of Noah lifting Sarah from the pony and setting her on his shoulders. The pair approached the porch, both wearing identical grins that never failed to warm Lucy's heart. "Mama, did you see me riding? I wasn't scared at all," Sarah called excitedly. "I saw, sweetheart. You were very brave," Lucy replied, reaching up to smooth her daughter's windblown curls. Noah set Sarah down next to her brother, then moved to stand beside Lucy, his arms slipping naturally around her waist. "She's a natural, just like her mother became," he said with pride. Lucy leaned into his embrace, remembering those early riding lessons that had helped cement their relationship. "I had an excellent teacher." Noah pressed a kiss to her temple, his arm tightening around her. "Have I told you today how much I love you, Mrs. Galloway?" "You have," Lucy smiled up at him, "but I never tire of hearing it." 5 years of marriage had only deepened their connection. They had weathered challenges together, drought seasons, difficult births of both children, the passing of James Wilson the previous winter. Through it all, their partnership had remained strong, each supporting the other through hardships while celebrating joys as a family. "Nora should be back from town soon," Lucy commented, referring to Noah's mother, who remained a vital part of their household. "She promised Sarah she'd help bake cookies this afternoon." "Mother spoils these children terribly," Noah observed with a fond smile as he watched Sarah attempting to show James how to stack his blocks higher. "As do you," Lucy pointed out, her tone equally affectionate. "Remember the rocking horse you stayed up 3 nights to finish for Sarah's birthday?" Noah chuckled, not denying the accusation. "They deserve all the love we can give them, a childhood filled with security and joy." Lucy nodded, understanding the depth behind his words. Noah's own childhood had been happy but marked by the harsh realities of frontier life. He was determined that his children would know hardship only in measured doses appropriate to their ages, balanced by abundant affection and encouragement. In the distance, they spotted Nora's buggy approaching, and Sarah immediately abandoned her blocks to run to the edge of the porch in anticipation of her grandmother's arrival. "Stay on the porch, Sarah," Noah called. "Remember the rules." The little girl obediently stopped at the top of the steps, though she continued to bounce with excitement. Lucy picked up James, who had raised his arms in a silent request to be held, and the family waited together for Nora's arrival. As the buggy drew closer, Lucy leaned her head against Noah's shoulder, overwhelmed for a moment by the perfect contentment of her life. From that first night when Noah had waited in the cold just to walk her home in silence, to this sun-drenched afternoon surrounded by the family they had created together, their journey had been one of deepening love and mutual respect. "What are you thinking about?" Noah asked, noticing her pensive expression. "How grateful I am that I came west," Lucy replied honestly. "How different my life would have been if I'd stayed in Boston and followed my father's plans." Noah's arm tightened around her waist. "I'm grateful every day that you were brave enough to forge your own path and that it led you to Timber Creek." "To you," Lucy corrected, looking up into the face she loved beyond measure. "It led me to you, Noah Galloway, and that has made all the difference." As Nora's buggy pulled into the yard and Sarah's excited calls welcomed her grandmother home, Noah bent to kiss his wife a kiss that still held all the passion of their early days together, now enriched by years of shared experiences and the deep, abiding love that had grown between them. In the wild Wyoming Territory, they had built not just a ranch and a school, but a legacy of love that would endure through their children, and beyond all, because a cowboy had waited patiently in the cold, night after night, just to walk a schoolteacher home in silence.